Hi, everybody. Welcome to live sessions. My cat. It's my kitten. You know how she is. I get on and she feels like she has to be on too. Okay. So today, is 4 years. Can you believe it? 4 years. I can't. So we have Jess on today, and I thoroughly want to apologize for today because it has been crazy, and I'm sorry. Yeah, but 4 years, guys. We've been doing this 4 years. So many. I think I've crossed, I don't know, probably 450, I think, people that I've interviewed. So that's crazy to me. It's crazy. I am packing to move, so I can't find my ring light. So I'm sorry, guys. I don't know where it went. But anyway, I am so excited because we have Jess on today, and she gets to be on our celebration. So, I think we're gonna bring her on. Let's see. Hi, how
Hello.
are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Today's been kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but it's all right. We made it.
Yeah. Here we are.
So, yeah, I actually first saw you on, I think on, Toya's show. You were on Toya's show, right?
Yeah, a couple
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I usually pop into her show every once in a while because it's a couple hours before mine, and her and I are pretty good friends. And so, yeah, I was like, I had popped in just as you were singing, and I was like, dang, I want to have her on my show. She's cool. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
talked to Toya. Girl, can we, oh, sorry, I had somebody call. I talked to Toya and I was like, girl, like, can we like, who is this? Like, can you send her to me so I can figure her out and get her on the show?
Yeah.
So, so I'm pretty excited. I got to listen to like some of your stuff on your like page. And yeah, I mean, you're just super talented. I'm like excited.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
I had a great time on Toya's show and kind of working with her on a couple of things. I did a local roots showcase a few
Oh,
months back that she hosted, which was really fun. And
yeah.
we've become, good acquaintances through the music scene for sure.
Yeah. Are you in the Seattle area?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I forgot to,
Yeah.
and I feel bad that I didn't look at
No,
that
it's all
before.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all in the same area. That's all really awesome. And how long have you been like doing music?
I've been doing music almost my whole life, I feel like.
Okay.
I started out kind of in the church music scene as a
Okay.
kid. When I was in like middle school, one of my youth pastors kind of noticed me and was like, we should get her, doing some more front leadership type stuff. So I
Yeah.
started doing stuff in church. And then I would say like kind of was on that track, all through high school, played for my youth group, my church, my tiny little private Christian school that I went to for high school as well. And then went to college with the intention of getting a music ministry degree so I could go on to be a worship pastor.
Okay.
That was going to be my
Yeah.
life. And then halfway through college, I had what I would now describe as like a crisis of faith and kind of went,
Oh,
I don't know how I feel about some of these things that I'm being taught and some of this theology that I'm learning and, just some of that, and started to really sort of question where my sense of identity and purpose and all of that was. And in the midst of that, I kind of, my, running joke is that I sort of broke up with music
Yeah.
and just walked away from it all for a while.
Damn that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of totally walked away from it for a good chunk of time. And then I think it was about end of 2015 into 2016 when I was like, you know what, this is such a big part of my life and my sense of self-expression and how I want to show up in the world. So I don't, um, I don't feel like I can live the rest of my life just doing something else and not having music as a part of
Yeah.
my journey. And so I just kind of randomly decided I'm going to start trying songwriting and see where that takes me and see what it's like to kind of write music for a totally different context and do it for myself and start, connecting with other songwriters in the area and that kind of thing. And I haven't looked back since. So yeah.
Amazing. And I find that that's really like the coolest thing, because like it really is a relationship. It's like it's like this almost give and take. Like you give out, you pour out your heart, and music kind of, takes that and does whatever it does with it, And
Totally.
I, wherever it goes, whoever listens to it, like wherever it takes you and what you're giving out. And it's so amazing. Like I just love that. It always calls to those who really love it, and you can never get over it, and it's like you try and you try and you try and you try and walk away and you try and walk away and you can't. Like for you, I've tried too since like 2001.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't know where that came from. I'm not even tired. And so yeah, so I feel like it's this whole like amazing journey that you go on with music of like some people are just like, I'm gonna do it and stick to it for their whole life, and then others of us are like, maybe not, maybe so.
Yeah.
And I understand the crisis of faith. I had the same thing. And when my brother died, crisis of faith, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's not for me to go back and like really come back around and remember. God. It's like a sneeze and a yawn. I don't even know what happened. So yeah, it's probably all the dog hair, I'm sure. My dog is like friggin', you could, I guarantee, take 2 dogs out of her with all. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before in my life. Anyway, so I was just like, I was just agreeing. It's just so crazy that, we all kind of end up finding our way back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it's not for the lighthearted, faint-hearted, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's I mean, obviously there are people who do it for a hobby, but I think for me, it was good for me to walk away because I got to unpack a lot of things during that season and kind of, recognize like where does my artistry really live and how do I want to show up in the world and where does this fit and how do I, not make it about me because I think for me music is still very much about serving other people.
Oh,
And
yeah,
and and I think like a lot of that has to do with my cultural roots as well, just coming from a culture that's very collective and not as individualistic as Western culture tends to be. And so it's really, important for me to use it as a tool to sort of give back and serve others with it. But I think there was a season in my life when I was doing it in the church context where it was like, it was only about that. And you sometimes would pour from this empty when you were showing up and doing it, whether you had the capacity and the emotional kind of, ability to do it or not. And I just got to this point where I was like, I don't want to fake this. Like this has to feel authentic.
Yep. it's
And
the one
so,
I think you can't fake, you know,
totally.
like
People can tell when
they
you
can
are.
tell you're singing
Yeah.
a song and it's like, hmm, da, 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 you know, or if it's like this emotion and pride and like, no matter what you're singing.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm just gonna state that. So yeah, I definitely understand that, and I think it's this thing of like, um, there's a man. I forgot what I was gonna say. It totally threw me off. Never mind. Okay. Anyways, um, I want to. Where did you like? What age did you start?
Yeah. So I think, well, so my first kind of introduction to music was through my dad, and
Mm,
he brought home a keyboard when I was probably like 5
yeah.
and actually wanted to start a Bollywood cover band. That was his dream. He didn't know a thing about playing music, had didn't know how to read notes.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Let's let's just go. Yes, Dad. For that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was a pretty great origin story. So yeah, he brought it home. He and his brothers, who didn't know a thing about music instruments
Oh my
other
God.
than just enjoying it as a listener, decided we're just gonna buy a bunch of instruments, put a band together. We don't know what we're doing, but we're just gonna go for it. So I was like, man, I wish I had that kind of confidence.
Did they know how to play?
Not at all.
So they
Yeah,
what?
yeah, not at all. And they all just kind of were self-teaching themselves how to play and plunking around on these instruments and trying to form a band.
Oh my gosh.
And um, so I was probably 5 or 6 at the time. I think I was,
Oh,
yeah, 5. And I would randomly just kind of, when he wasn't playing with it,
yeah.
go over and like fiddle with it. And my parents noticed that I was like composing my own little melodies. And
Oh,
so they were like, there's something to, she naturally has a gift.
yeah.
Like she can clearly figure out little rhythms and melodies and that kind of thing. Again, was very young, didn't know how to read music or anything at that point. So a couple years later, they put me into actual music lessons. And at that time, I was also like doing kids choir at the church, and just kind of like music was always sort of being fostered and cultivated in my life. And started taking piano lessons when I was like 6 or 7,
Yeah.
and then kind of just stuck with it. And then, like I said, in 2016 or so, when I um, kind of came back to music and decided I'm going to try this independently, I picked up guitar. So I still like, I always kind of say, I'm a piano player who can strum a guitar. I'm not really a guitar
Yeah.
player.
I say the same thing. I'm a drummer that can kind of fiddle on a guitar.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
If I'm lucky and you give me long enough, I could probably figure something out on the piano.
yeah,
I'm not a piano player by any stretch.
yeah, yeah. When did you get into drums? That's cool that you
uh,
play.
so that was the very first instrument I played was the flute when I was like 9.
Okay,
So I first got into music when I was
okay.
9. I played that until I was 18, in band in school, and then I wanted to be like I wanted to be cool because I liked this boy in band, and so I I started playing. I bought my first drum set when I was 16 with my very first paycheck, and then yeah, it was kind of all over from there. So that's like my first instrument I can play.
Okay.
Uh, so whenever I hear a song, I hear the beat first, you know.
Yep.
Um, and if it has like the sickest drums, I'm like all over it. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so then I started playing guitar because obviously I had like music coming out of me, and I wanted to write songs and be cool and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so then I started playing guitar when I was like, I don't know, I was like 17 or 18. It was a little while. It was like shortly after, like a year or so after. And yeah, I think it
Nice.
was maybe it was 15. No, I think I was 15 when I bought my drum set,
Okay.
and then I was 17 when I bought the guitar. So, yeah, it was a really long time ago. I still have that guitar,
Nice.
in fact. Like,
Yeah.
it's right, always right next to me. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's cool to have to know like more than one medium, you know? Do you prefer the guitar or the piano over the guitar, like when you're writing?
It really varies. I feel like I really view the guitar as a songwriting tool for myself. Like I said, I don't really consider myself like a true guitar player, but um, some days, I've got an idea in my head and I'm like, this just makes sense to do it on guitar.
Uh,
I'm hearing
yeah,
something that I feel like, stylistically or whatever is going to lend itself to the guitar more than the piano. But piano is definitely where I'm most
yeah.
comfortable. And I feel like my more complicated songs definitely come out of the piano.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and
there's kind of a
I think that's a more complicated uh, instrument between the two,
sure,
you know,
yeah,
and where you can the style and I have that problem too. Like I don't play the piano very well, but I'll go to my friend who's like really accomplished at it, and I'll be like, dude, I hear this in my head. I need you to get it out somehow. Like it's
yeah,
not working with the guitar. I need you to figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah, I think for me too, I mean, I took classical piano for a little while, and so I just learned, like with guitar, I know some
Yeah,
chords, I can do some basic strumming patterns, that kind of thing. But piano is like the thing that I'm like fluent
yeah,
in,
yeah,
and I, just have a much easier time thinking about like voicings and yeah, even like rhythmically, I can just do more
yeah,
on a piano, I think, than I can on guitar yet. So, my goal is to keep learning and getting better at guitar, but definitely, yeah, like I said, piano player who can kind of strum a guitar
yeah.
is kind of where I'm at this
I
point.
hear you. I
Yeah.
hear it. Yeah. So then, the other thing too is like, where did you start and decide, like, um, or start to decide where you wanted to start doing this like full time and like really make it, what were, I guess obviously in school it was kind of I don't know, I would say like a hard thing to decide, like a struggle. That's the word I'm looking for.
Sure. Yeah.
A struggle. So, like after that, all of that, did you still want to do music, or did you take? I mean, you said you took time off, so I'm assuming it was after that,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
come back.
So, yeah, I went to college for music. That was my initial path.
Yeah.
And so at that point, that was like 2005, I think, is when I started college. I couldn't imagine my life
Mm.
really doing anything other than music full time.
Yeah.
And so when I ended up kind of changing directions, I ended up getting an English degree, and which is still
Every
creative.
between it's English or psychology. That's like
Yeah,
everybody's,
yeah,
archaeology.
right.
Those are like everybody's like, I got a degree.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think, I went to college during the era where it was like, just get a degree. Doesn't matter what it's in. Which I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that now with,
Oh
with
my
the way things
God,
are.
yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, I just couldn't imagine my life doing anything else. So when I, walked away from it all for a while, I was really in this weird place of like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah.
What is next for me? And graduated college, kind of just took a job, ended up in a career path that I didn't really want to be on,
Yeah.
but it was like the thing that was like paying the bills and just keeping me afloat.
Yeah.
And so when I came back to it, I sort of knew, because the thing that's nice about doing music in a church capacity is it's a full-time job with a full-time salary, with the health benefits, with all of that sort of grown-up work stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
comes with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so when I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this independently, I don't know how to like make it, because the industry's changing, and I didn't spend my whole sort of youth, young adult years building this community around myself that was in the independent music scene. I had done that exclusively in the church music scene. So it was a huge risk to kind of say, okay, I'm going to do this and try it. And so, I mean, I have another job. I'm working a full-time job as a content writer. So I'm, putting my degree to use, and I'm, doing all of that, but still sort of finding my way into doing music on a professional level, and, taking everything that I had sort of thought was going to happen with the music ministry direction and repackaging that all into this new independent solo, artist thing. But, even within that, again, I think because of the music kind of worship ministry background that I have, I've always wanted to use music as a way to sort of facilitate something bigger than just myself. And so, the thing that I've been really exploring, especially for the last year or so, is thinking about how diversity, equity, and inclusion and the arts work together. So, I've tried some things, some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. I had a podcast for a little while that was about women of color in the arts and exploring that. And then, trying to do that with a full-time job while being a gigging musician was just way too much. And, wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of monetary gain from that. It was a lot of spending our own money to try to get that podcast off the ground as it goes. And so we ended up making the really difficult decision in December to shut it down, which I'm still kind of sad about because I miss that, doing that sort of intersection of those two things that I love so much. And so now I'm in this kind of exploration space, and trying to figure out how do I do that kind of racial equity, social justice work and tie it to the creative piece and to the songwriting. But you'll kind of hear it even in some of my songs. A lot of my songs have come out of wrestling with kind of my own racialized experiences and my experiences being a woman, and just that kind of thing. So so I'm still kind of in this exploration space of trying to figure out how do I do this full time. I'm really, really fortunate that I have a manager right now at my day job who's incredibly supportive of my music, and my team is really supportive of it. And so I don't feel like it's competing with that. They're pretty great about all right, you need to go gig. You're taking a couple hours off to go do that. Break a leg, have a great time tonight, whatever. It's awesome. That is rare. You don't find that in a lot of managers. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful for that. I think it helps that, it's a marketing team. So it's everybody's kind of creatively inclined.
Yeah.
And so, everyone has a side hustle. They all kind of understand the need to sort of fill yourself up on an artistic level. So that helps. But yeah, I'm kind of doing the bivocational thing for now and exploring and dreaming about what comes next with especially the racial equity piece and how to really, create spaces for especially women of color. That's really where my heart is, to, foster environments where they can be lifted up and promoted and have spaces to grow. Because one thing I noticed when I came into the independent music scene is there's not a lot of resources and networking opportunities and things like that that are specific for women, first of all, but even less for women of color when you put that intersection in there as well. And so I just started thinking this is my identity, this is who I am, this is something I think about constantly. So how can I be a bridge builder, and how can I be somebody who helps foster some of that? And so my dream job really, a lot of people I think in the music industry want to be a rock star. They want to go and tour, and they want to, I just saw the Dave Matthews Band this past weekend at the Gorge, and of course you have that dream of man, how incredible would it be to be on that stage, opening for DMB and having this kind of an incredible experience. But I think for me, what I'm sort of realizing more and more is that my heart is to create community for people who are marginalized, who don't always have that support, whether it's support from their family, whether it's financial support, whether it's just the platform, the stage to get up on, to try out their art
Yeah.
and build that, skill set. That's kind of where I see myself going. So, like, my dream job, more than being, a full-time touring artist, as much as I would love to do that, is to be a facilitator in a sense, and start, I don't know if it's going to be a nonprofit or some kind of an organization that really fosters space for women of color artists and musicians specifically.
Amazing. How do you feel like this affects your music and how you play it, what you write about? Like, is it prompting your music, and how does it affect it?
Yeah. I mean, I, am definitely a person who struggles with imposter syndrome, I think, as a lot of artists do. But I think there's so many layers to that when you're also a person from a marginalized community, where you're sort of always othered anyway, so that imposter voice gets a lot louder a lot of times. And, so I've written songs from that place of, and then always, writing something and then going, is it good enough? Should I share this? Kind of having those conversations, and always feeling like it's not good enough, which, I've learned to embrace it and kind of use that as a motivator to keep pushing me towards excellence and improvement and getting better at my craft and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I look around, even like some of these podcasts that I'll get random clips of on Insta, and I'm like, who gave you a microphone? Like, who are these people that just have that level of confidence and, like, zero fucks given, and just kind of jump in and go for it? And it's like the most mediocre content out there. And then here I am, like, working my ass off, trying to, create perfection every time, because I hold myself to these really high standards. So it can be a blessing and a curse. It's like, sometimes I really wish I had the ability to just kind of not give fucks and just go for it and, like, put it out there. And, but at the same time, I think it pushes me to be better in some ways. So, yeah.
Like, that's medium, like you have to, there has to be a driver somehow.
Totally.
So, I think that's really where, maybe that's where it lies with you, and why you're so talented, is you have this driver of, like,
Thank you.
I am color, there isn't very much for me and everybody else. And, unfortunately, or I don't know, maybe not unfortunately, but I don't have that. So I think where your music is pushed by that amazing thing of, like, I'm a woman and I deserve this too, and you give all the other people of color and race and everything that push to be like, if I can do it, you can do it, kind of a thing.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm not held back. Why should you be held back?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. I think that takes a lot of courage, though. I mean, if you're getting on a podcast and talking about it, for one, for two, making music about it. And granted, I 100% agree and understand is this song good enough? Like, I get it so much. Like, because I do it every single time, But I think you're right. You kind of have to look at it as, like, okay, like, it really doesn't, like, the women we admire with the no fucks, because I am there too.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, how does it feel to, like, have that, like, just no fucks.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from inside of you,
Yeah.
But I think in music, you kind of have to have this sort of free-for-all fall, of like, okay, I'm going to do it, whether it's trying to figure out full-time or, part-time, or whatever you're doing in that medium, I think music just forces you to have that free fall and to trust yourself in your creativity. And boy, I have, in the 400 things interviews I've done, I have not found one person that doesn't feel that, where we're all, oh shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
no matter how confident they seem,
Yeah.
there's a like underline of like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah. I mean, it's amazing feeling. And I feel like I would love to hear like your point of view on those different like points of being a woman of color and being able to like have that different perspective of where how music affects you personally and stuff. I mean, that would just be a fantastic podcast, I think. And I think it would be like this uh, uh, from a different point of view and a perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I don't know.
Yeah, when we had the podcast and we were interviewing, and we didn't limit it to just musicians, we were interviewing people across different art forms.
Yeah.
And so we had writers and painters and graphic designers and, songwriters and kind of all these different people, but they were all women of color and people who came from different backgrounds and different cultures and different locations and all of these things. And yet that sense of imposter syndrome was so loud for every single one of us. And it was just like, we're sitting there going, yeah, that is me, and at the same time, one thing I noticed, actually, so I had a sound engineer who was helping kind of, run some of the technical aspects of it. And he's a good buddy mine, and he's a white man, but definitely somebody that I would consider an ally.
Yeah.
And, he would be in the room listening to all these conversations because he was helping record them. And, he said to me at one point, he goes, one thing that really struck me at kind of when we were evaluating at the end of our season, he said, you would ask certain questions and you would watch people light up because you were giving them a space to talk about things that they probably don't get asked about in very many other interviews.
Yes.
And I was like, that means so much to me. And then every single guest we had would say like, thank you for making me look good. Like you've put so much time and effort into the research and into how you conduct your interview and just, making me shine in this space. And I really appreciate that because there's a lot of times where, again, we get othered and we sort of get pushed to the side or we're sort of, not valued in the same way that other people are in this business. And so it was really encouraging and humbling to, more than anything to kind of have that space where we could be this sort of alternate perspective and talk about the hard things. And I am more than positive that we pissed off some people along the way talking about certain things.
Right, if you aren't. I've
Yeah,
pissed plenty of people, let me tell you.
totally. Yeah.
Tried to cancel me several times, and I'm here 4 years later.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I think that we have to be able to tell our truth and, share from honest places, even when it makes certain groups feel uncomfortable or, and I think that discomfort in our context really came from people who have more privilege in this space being able to sort of go, oh, I'm being called out for something.
Yeah.
And now I have to self-reflect, and people don't want to do that all the time.
That is like the epitome of, I think the culture now.
Yeah.
The turn your back and just not, I don't want to worry. I don't want to worry about that. I don't care.
Yep.
I'm just me. I'm going to go my own lane. I'm going to go my own way. And blinders and just, horse blinders, you know what I'm talking about? And
totally
tunnel vision and just be like, no, I don't want to deal with anything else because I don't know how to. I wasn't to. Or, there's a multitude of reasons. But then there's the rest of us that are in the creative space that are like, fuck all of y'all. And like we have a voice and we know it. And like it's amazing. I love seeing that in other people too, because I feel like us that have platforms and have this kind of talent to be able to say something in a way that somebody will hear it, and that's kind of what I learned is like, yeah, maybe I don't think the song is going to be great, but somebody is going to think it is,
Totally.
you know? So that's
Yep.
two people, whether that's a million people, who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, uh, it's a great way to be able to, I think, give back, like you were saying, to people and give them that opportunity. And what an opportunity to give people a voice.
Mhm.
Like, and some people, that's what this has become in a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, you had a platform and a podcast, but some people, this is like their first interview and they've never talked about their music with anybody. I had one girl, she was very young and her parents didn't even know she played music.
Oh,
It
wow.
was
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, just beautiful on the piano.
Yeah.
And so it was like she hid that from her family
Mm.
and played at school. And it was just like, man, like, there's this whole thing of like, I don't think it should ever be hidden with people. And I do feel for women of color and different race than I am, because there is this like hypocrisy with it, and I do feel like there needs to be a light on it, and if you're doing it, man, I'm all behind that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Like the culture that I come from, it's a very practical, pragmatic kind of a culture
Yeah.
where it's like, whatever you're doing with your life, is it making you money? Is it gaining you status? Doing all these things?
Yeah.
And my family was always sort of not that way. I was really fortunate to have parents, and especially my mom, who like didn't really buy into that and was never concerned about, are my kids going to become doctors and engineers and lawyers and have this status. It was always, do what you want to do. Like, I support you. And and so for me, it's like, I want to be that for other people. I always say I want to be that like Indian auntie who's saying, you can
Yeah.
do it. You got this. I'm behind you. I'm not going to be the one saying, what are people in the community going to say when you decide you want to do, the starving artist thing or whatever. Like, I'm behind you. Go express yourself. Go create. Go, you know, be you, be yourself, and don't let anybody, look down on you for that. And so that's, like I said, I think with the podcast, it was like there wasn't that voice from that perspective really out there. So I kind of went, how do I fill that need? And that's always what it is for me. It's like, how can my art, whatever it is that I'm doing, whether if it's a podcast or songwriting or anything else, my writing as well, like, how can this be a bridge builder, and how can this platform and champion and uplift and kind of help other people shine and do what they are meant to do. It's not really about me being under
Yeah.
some spotlight. So yeah.
I write for the local paper. I always I do human interest, and so always try and like write as if it's a story, which is why they have me do it. But like,
Yeah.
I think I think the same way. Like, how can I make this impactful to other people that are reading it?
Yeah.
So that story behind this and why, and I think that's amazing. You just have this like really great eye, I think, or ear maybe, for like really wanting to be that person and that voice for those. And it is interesting because since you brought it up, like this might be total, like, I don't know what how I don't even know what the word is right now, cliche, but like your culture does have, from what I understand, and you can correct me,
Sure.
like this need to want doctors and things like that, so that there is this focus on status.
Yeah.
I think that leans towards, you're right, like this whole, no, you're not going to do it, or the support kind of lacking if you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's amazing that your family do like allowed you to have that space, because I haven't heard of that yet.
Yeah.
Like, a few people that I've had on the show, none of them have had support.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're right, like that voice is so important and so pivotal in giving that space where, like, hey, it is important, you are important, what you want is important. I get there's this generational thing and culture, but like, hey, let's change the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give, you know, ourselves that space and that time to do it. And
Yeah.
that, like, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
applaud you
Thank you.
wanting to be that person.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard space to be in, but it, you know, it kind of, I think where it stems from, that anxiety that often comes with immigrant families, I think, is because of that scarcity
Yeah.
and that sort of coming to a new country, starting from scratch, not having anything, you know, working your butts off to kind of make a life for yourself. Like my dad worked 2 jobs, you know, my mom worked really hard through her career. You know, I watched them struggle, and like neither of them
Ugh.
had oh yeah, you're good. You know, neither of them went to college. You know, they didn't have the opportunity
Oh,
to. So it was like with us, it was always like make something of yourself, you know, and they could have very easily gone in that direction of like status and like,
yeah.
you know, get rich, get a career that's gonna make you a ton of money so you can have all these lavish things. But I think for even the families that sort of do go in that direction or sort of put that pressure on, a lot of times it's because of a stability thing, because they just don't want their children to struggle in the ways that they struggled. So they're like, be pragmatic, be practical, do the thing that's going to give you, you know, the most security so that you don't ever end up in the situation that we ended up in. Um, but, you know, again, my family was kind of this anomaly where they just sort of supported even when I was like, I'm going to go get a music degree in college. And they were like, just get a degree. That's all we care about, you know? And we fully support this. Yeah. And then when I said, hey, I don't want to do the music thing anymore, I'm going to switch my major to English,
Yeah.
which, you know, I was a first gen college student. I don't think I understood that like English majors don't make any money
Yeah.
either.
I That's what I'm saying. It's like the backup for everybody that's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I want to do, or I'm putting off what I really want to do and I just need a
Yeah.
degree, you know? The
Right.
easiest
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was never under the pressure of like, you know, like I wasn't great with science and math classes when I was younger, you know, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And like my mom especially would always make a point to like acknowledge where I was good, you know, and so when report cards would come home, she wasn't that mom who was like, oh, look at this, you know, C minus that you got in a math class or
Yeah.
whatever. It was always like, look at that A you got in English, or look at that A you got in history, and like really
Yeah.
sort of
Focus
played
on the,
into my
yeah.
strengths, you know? And so I think that kind of gave me the confidence to then say, okay, what am I good at? Music, writing, kind of artistic expression, you know, how do I build a life around the things that I feel like I'm good at, the
Yeah.
things that I naturally sort of am inclined towards. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. Does it, you know, for them, I assume that their parent, your grandparents, are more cultural, unless did they come over too?
Yeah. So, you know, my family's background is so we're Indo-Fijian. So
Okay.
my parents and, you know, all of their family were all Indian, but they were all raised in Fiji.
Oh,
And yeah, there's a whole history around
yeah.
that. And so I think because of that, the culture is a little bit more laid back in Fiji than
Yeah.
it would be in India.
Well, that
And so,
yeah, that totally makes sense why there's kind of a different flow with your family
yeah,
then.
yeah,
There's not that ideology that they would have had they been in India, like
yeah,
straight all the
right.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, different kind of roots that they were
Yeah.
exposed, you know, had growing up. And so, you know, when they came here, so my dad's family came here and then my parents got married. They had an arranged marriage and then came
Wow.
here.
Okay.
Um, and, you know, and then very much assimilated in a lot of ways to kind
Yeah.
of American culture, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about, you know, now at this stage
Yeah.
in my life as I'm kind of learning and unlearning a lot of things about my own background and roots and all of that. But I think it created this really unique experience for me. And I think my mom was around a lot of Americans, kind of seeing the way they were raising their children and all that kind of stuff. And so, she was taking cues from like the people at church and how are they raising their children, and just was around a completely different kind of community than she probably would have been
Yeah.
if she had grown up and been raised in India or whatnot. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I've got this kind of mishmash of cultures and values that are all sort
Yeah.
of woven into my own family, and then that's impacted sort of who I've become. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. How amazing to be kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah.
I feel like, yes, I am Indian, but
Yep.
it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm going to go your way,
Right.
But what an amazing like opportunity to connect with other people too. I mean, that's a different perspective,
Yeah.
because there would obviously, I would assume, people would have this immediate reaction being like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you have this certain ideology and this certain thought, right? And yet you're completely just like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It took me a long time to get to the point where I could own that identity and that sense
Yeah.
of, multiple kind of multicultural background that I have. Because I always have kind of jokingly said, or like my brothers and I will say this, because I have two younger brothers and they were born and raised in the States as well.
Yeah.
And we always kind of say we're not Indian enough for the Indian community, but we're like not American enough for the American community either. Sometimes, like where do we live? We're in this weird liminal space. Yeah. No wonder we have imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Right? I can't imagine. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna let you play. My phone is gonna die, so I want to get my charger before it does. So I'm gonna let you play while I go grab it really quick.
All right.
So
sounds good.
Take it away.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna play a relatively new one. I'm in the process of actually writing a record right now, and this is like the first track I think or the first song that I've written kind of in completion for my new project. It's called Arrive. Nothing tastes right when you're not by my side. Woke up today and I cried 'cause you had faded. The bitter taste in my mind is dripping into my mouth, forming words in my throat. I'm suffocating. I feel so alone. Out here on my own, to the lonely ride, do they only survive? This was never the plan. When you and I first began, held all our dreams in our hands till they turned rancid. Would have followed you still. Heaven knows taste right when you're not by my side. Woke up today and I cried 'cause you had faded.
Yeah, man, that's a great song.
Thank you.
You can just sit and like, I would just sit and just listening to your voice, honestly, and you have so much good control.
Thank
Like
you.
just this control of like, just going. I was like, I just want to sit and listen. That's all I'm gonna do. Like, that's amazing, and the just the melody and the musicality is amazing. I'm sure it's. You said you recorded it, right? For your
recorded that one yet. Yeah, I just wrote it recently. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think personally you should put that one out. I mean,
Thank you.
Like,
yeah. It's the plan. Yeah, I'm in the process of writing a full length record, and that's
okay. That's
gonna
what
go on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like that was just so beautiful. Like what a great soft-hearted, like just
Thank you.
I love that type of song where it's just this soft, like, I don't know, like it just hits you,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of how I see, like, I don't know. But I'm struggling with words today, as you can tell.
All good. All good.
My brain. Like I said, it has been nuts the last couple days, and my brain, I think, is just like, I think we're gonna check out at some point. Like, I'm gonna go nuts eventually.
Sounds like you need like a self-care day or something.
I feel like I do too. Like I'm like, maybe I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just a beautiful song. I loved it. This Maria, she seems to super love you.
Yeah, she's a pal of mine. Big supporter. Always great to see her.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, Maria. That's amazing, for being here and supporting her.
Absolutely. And it was great to see her name on here.
Yeah. I feel like that's good for you guys to see somebody you recognize.
Totally.
You're like, oh yeah, I got somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We have more time if you want to do like one more or two more or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I can throw one more in here. I'm kind of feeling like playing another unreleased one. So
do whatever you want.
Yeah, we were talking about imposter syndrome earlier. So this is actually one that I wrote kind of about that experience of being a woman of color and, being somebody who struggles with imposter syndrome. And it's all about kind of shutting out those voices when we need to. So, to whoever is watching the replay, if you're struggling with that, I hope this song encourages you and gives you a bit of motivation to kind of turn off that voice or, flick it away whenever it starts screaming at you. So
I love it.
Thanks. So this one's called Breaking the Glass, and it's also unreleased at this point. So kind of an exclusive performance here for you all. There's a mirror on the wall telling me to fall, saying I'm not at all strong enough. Reflections in the dark, distorted little There's a song inside my mind, a tempo that lies behind, but I don't know where to find the right melody. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the bravest of them all? Begging you to tell me, please, your silence is a reverie. So I'll break the glass down, break the glass down, break the glass down now. Break the glass down, break the glass down now. I'll break the glass down, break the glass down, break the glass down now. Break the glass down, break the glass down now. Oh, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the bravest of them all? I've listened to you for so long, now I know that you were wrong. So I'm breaking the glass, I'm letting it shatter, 'cause I'm gonna dance, 'cause your gaze no longer matters.
Again, very well written.
Thank you.
I think my favorite line, and again, I might get it wrong, is the tempo is behind and I can't find a melody.
Yeah.
Man, like that's, and I love that you kind of put the music in there, like the music part of it and how that like is interjected into that, into that feeling. But I don't know, something about that line was like, dude, yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just feels that way. Like you're just like, I can't find it.
Yeah.
Like, everything is behind me and I don't know, I don't know where I'm going. And
Yeah.
man, that I just really appreciated that. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it's resonating.
Yeah, resonating.
Sure.
There you go. That's a good word. Yeah. I really like that one too. I think for me personally, that one kind of resonated with me more than the other one.
Sure.
But they're both really beautiful and just so melodic.
Thank you.
Like just very, in your voice, you can go pretty high, man. Like that was great.
Yeah. I always thought I was an alto, and then I started taking voice lessons and kind of realized I think I'm more of a mezzo actually.
Yeah.
Than a true alto. So
yeah. Oh man. That's awesome. I was impressed that you could go so high. I can't go that high. So I would sound like I'm screeching, and that's just not good for anybody.
Well, shout out to my former, voice teacher, Wes Fate, who's also a musician in the local scene.
Yeah.
But he and I worked together for a few years, and he really helps me kind of learn how to expand my range. So
that's great.
Big shout out to him.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Shout out, man. Did a great job. I need to get me a voice teacher for real. But I think you're awesome.
Thank you.
You just have such a it even made me more excited that you're on because you have this different perspective than most people. And I love that. I love that you bring something different and a different flavor and a different heart and a different way of seeing life. And that's so cool. And you use your music for it, and I
Yes.
love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know how else to. Honestly, it's like this is the thing that I feel like, God or the universe has sort of gifted me with, and I gotta put it back out there. So yeah.
Way to embrace it, for real. Like, way to like take that and own it in some, whether you feel imposter syndrome or not, way to take whatever part of that you feel is you and really just throw it back and be like, this is the reality, this is life,
Thank you.
That's cool. That's so cool. Not a lot of people can do that. So look in the mirror and be proud of yourself, man, because that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for what you're doing, just bringing people together and creating conversations and community. I think that's such a big part of, this work that we do. It's like again, if it's just for ourselves, it only goes so far. But when we do it for others and with others, I think it just is a much more meaningful thing. So I really appreciate what you're doing and giving a platform to, first-time musicians or people who kind of need that space to sort of try it out and learn and grow. That's so important, and I'm really excited that you're doing that.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, both of us have some sort of fire, so to say, in wanting to be that opportunity for other people, and I mean, just like you, like, where did that was what I was going to ask earlier, actually, is at what point did you take that spark of like, I need to say something, I have a voice, and want to do that podcast and want to bring those people on and want, all of that, like, where did that come from? Like, was it just, quick or
I mean,
ongoing?
It's kind of always been there. I think there's always been that desire to speak up and to, to be bold and to call things out. My mom always says, like, from the time you were a little kid, if you see something wrong, like, I wasn't a tattletale, but I also was like, calling stuff out from an early age, because I just, she was like, you've always had that integrity of just wanting things to be right and wanting people who have their voices suppressed a lot of the times a space to kind of speak and be. But I think what really sparked it for me was everything that happened in 2020. And, and the thing is, like, I was talking about this with my podcast co-host. We actually talked about it on the show, but she and I have been best friends since we were in college, like met when we were 18. And, one thing we kind of feared when everything was happening in 2020, we're like, okay, there's all these people that are sort of hyped up because of what's in the headlines. And yet this has been, for people of color, this has been the reality forever. It's not just the thing that's happening to us now because of stuff that the media is choosing to talk about. And, all these companies and organizations and individuals and people were making these sweeping grand declarations about, we're committed to DEI and racial justice and breaking down these things. And I remember kind of feeling skeptical, because I was like, yeah, but when the headlines change, like, who's going to still be here doing this work? Some of us have been doing this work for our entire existence. Who's going to continue this work later? And when that shift happens. And so I think for me, it was kind of this thing where it was like, it has to be now or never, because in some ways, well, not now or never, but like, it has to be now, because in some ways people's attentions are on this thing right now, and people are a little bit more, receptive maybe to hearing like some of these things.
The same word.
Totally. But it felt like this moment that was kind of happening culturally, where it was like, we need to talk about this now. Now, what's fascinating about that is, it took us a while to, again, because I'm such a perfectionist, to kind of build the podcast and get it all up and going. And then when we we did it, it was already like a year into kind of after everything had sort of happened in the media, at least. And like 10 episodes in, we started seeing the listenership sort of drop off, and I was like, I can't tell if it's because we're talking about things that are making people uncomfortable, or if it's because the moment is already sort of passing and people are already ready to sort of be like done with this conversation. But, from where I'm sitting, it's like, I will keep talking about this because it's not a phase, it's not a fad, it's not something that kind of happened and is over and dealt with. Like, we are still seeing police brutality, we're still seeing racial injustice everywhere. And now what we're seeing is like companies and organizations rolling back on all these DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion efforts that were made in 2020 and 2021. Positions are being let go that were created to kind of help foster those things in the workplace. Just, there's a lot of that stuff happening. So for me, it's like, the work is not done. We are not finished with this, and we have to keep going. And, I will keep going as long as I have the ability to keep going. And, I would love to, ideally would love to bring that podcast back, or reformat it somehow to kind of, make it more of a prominent thing in my life. But in the meantime, it's like, if I can do this through my music, if I can do it through these kinds of spaces and continue having the conversation in whatever platform it is that I'm given, to kind of remind people that, like, hey, we still need to be committed to equity. We still need to be doing things on a regular basis, not just talking about them, but like, I always say this to people in the music business, like, if you're a producer, if you're, an artist manager, if you're a person who books for venues, and especially if you're a white person with privilege, who's got a lot of connections, like, what are you doing on a daily basis to foster opportunity for people from marginalized identities, and using your platform to champion and uplift and amplify those voices? Or what are we, all of us, doing to support, financially, monetarily? Are we buying merch? Are we going to shows? Are we doing all of those kind of, sort of micro acts even, that ultimately, make a difference when we do it together, So, like I mentioned, I was at the Dave Matthews Band show at the Gorge this past weekend, and even one thing I noticed about Dave that really struck me as a cool thing was all of his openers were sort of not super well-known artists. And, and I've seen him a couple of years now at the Gorge, and he tends to have a lot of people of color, artists, that are sort of undiscovered. And I looked over at my brother, who was with me this weekend, and I was like, he's doing the work. Like, he's using his platform to create opportunity and space for people who, like, a lot of the artists were like, I don't even have a record out yet, and they're sort of these no names, so to speak. And he's just finding them and being really intentional about giving them a platform. And, kind of, that is the work, It doesn't have to be like a preachy thing or something that, it's like we have to advertise it as a BIPOC event or whatever. Like, I think there's some cool things that can come from that too, but it's like, let's just build it into our general practices of how this industry operates, and create space and opportunity for people as much as we can. And then the next thing you know, we will have a more equitable music scene, so
Well, I think, just only because I've been in so I can only speak to the Seattle music scene because I've been in for 20 years. But, I definitely feel like, of all places, we kind of have that, though. Like, we have such a diverse, Seattle is so diverse in bringing different cultures here. Like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, and like I feel like they've kind of fostered that a little bit. And then with that comes, their second generation of people who want to be in the scene and who want to see and who want to go out. And There's a fly.
Oh,
And we have the worst flies right now. They are
yeah.
everywhere. Um, but yeah, anyway, so I don't know. I feel like Seattle kind of has that opportunity more than most and is more forgiving and more accepting. But
It
I
is
also,
and it isn't. I mean, I would
hey,
push back on that
not
a little bit.
100%. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's 100%. I'm just saying in some other cases and places,
Yes.
we're a little bit more accepting. And I think you're right. It takes everybody doing just a little bit every day. And for Dave to bring people on, um, that are of different color and races and whatever, and people that are unknown, I think that's a huge thing, and it's a huge statement, you know.
Hmm.
And I mean, I've had the opportunity of have every race on my show, you know, it
Hmm.
from, you know, everything. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you how many there are.
Yeah.
Everybody. And so it's just, I think that's what you're right about, is everybody kind of, I don't do it every day, but I do what I can with this show to make sure that everybody's welcome. And there
Yeah.
isn't stigma of, just because I'm a white girl with a platform, that I don't care or I want to stick to that or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think music is music, and it transcends, and it is able to go through a lot of things. And if you're stuck with a platform that only allows one avenue or one race or one ideology or one thought or one genre of music, that's all you. But like, that's good for whoever. But like, I still feel like you're kind of excluding people who could possibly have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I think there's enough radio stations out there that do that. I think all of us that are musicians and all of us that have platforms like this should diversify, you know.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. 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 I mean, the music scene in general is there's a lot of gatekeepers in
Well,
this.
there is that too. You're
So,
right.
so I think anything, like I said, that we can do, those of us who have any kind of a platform, um, to sort of break down
Yeah.
those gates and create opportunity and bring people along, with us in that space is so important. And yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful that I grew up here. There's a lot of other places in the country that I think would be a lot more
Yeah.
challenging than the
For,
Seattle area. But that being said, I could tell you story after story of experiences that I've had, my family
oh,
has
I'm sure.
had,
Yeah.
so it's like I said, there's a lot of work still to be done. And my thing is, let's just keep raising
Yeah.
awareness and talking about it, because the more we talk about it, the more people realize the work that needs to be done.
And
So,
then if it's every day, you know, if we're bringing up that voice every, you know, like, hate to say it, but like the news doing the same thing every single day, you know, it's like people listen, you know, there is that,
yeah.
uh, you know, or people listen to the radio or whatever it is, you know, whether they're, you know, you play the song that is annoying on the radio all the time, and you're just like, stop playing it every hour. But it generates a reaction, right? It's talked about, it's, you know, so I think that's part of it too, is just that word of mouth and people really having that conversation, honest conversation, not the surface level
Yeah.
conversation, you know.
Yeah.
And um I agree. I think that needs to happen. I think people need to really um have a new perspective and be open to it and receptive to other people's experience and culture. And you know, it can be amazing. I have experienced so much, and I just feel like so lucky that everybody has brought that here to the show. And to because I do live shows too, like where I
Yeah.
put on showcases, and they've brought it there, and it's just amazing to me. Like, I love that people are able to teach us all. You
Hmm.
know, we're able to teach each other about something. We all come from different places. We're not all raised the same. You know, so um, I don't know. I feel like it's a good advocacy to be behind. You know. like, yes, we're all, there doesn't need to be everybody. I never really believed in the creative, treat everybody equal, because you can't treat everybody the same. Not everybody's going to be that way. I
Well, that's
think
the
everybody's
difference, right? Between
human.
right.
Like,
Yeah, right.
the
Well, and that's the difference.
entity.
I think that's the difference between equality and equity,
Yeah.
right? And like that's why I think there's this need to embrace the idea of equity more than just equality. Because if you're just treating everybody the same, not everybody started in the same starting place. Some people need more of a leg up, or that the resources to kind of get to that place of equality.
Yeah.
So anyway, I could sit here and talk about this forever.
I like we could too, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think you've done a great job of at least bringing it here, and I think it's important. I think it's great. And I know we came here for music and got totally off track, but I hope everybody has learned something, and I really hope that they've listened, and I really hope that they go and check your music out, because
Thank you.
And just thank you for coming on and sharing your gift and sharing your advocacy for something super important. And we're always here to be behind it and support. And support music too. I mean, number one, but everything else, I support that too.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a joy to chat with you, and thanks for letting me share my story and some of my songs and all of that.
Of course, that's what we do here. We got to share the cool people, That's we aren't that equal. We're cool. You got to be in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding, everybody. Okay. But yeah, thank you again for coming. Please come back. Like when your
I would love to.
Drops, I don't know, new song drops. Like I would love it.
Cool.
And we can talk for another hour about all of the great things that we want to.
Sounds good. Yeah.
In an hour and a half. Oh my God. Well, thank you for being here that long.
Yeah, no problem.
And remember, give no fucks, friend.
Yes.
No fucks given, okay? You and I both. No fucks given. We're just going to do it.
Yes.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for, coming. And if you're watching the replay, go and check her out. Go follow her. Go support her. She's doing great stuff, not just in music. So let's support that and bring that to conversation. I love that so much. So check out next week. And happy 4th year, guys. We are here. You're on our 4th year.
Yay.
Like, you're the first one for the 4th year.
I'm honored. Honored. That's great. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for all your support and being here 4 years and us keep doing this and allowing me to keep doing it and bringing on amazing people like her. And I'm so excited and thankful too. So we shall sign off, and we've been here for forever, and I'm really sorry we took an hour and a half, people, but I think it was awesome. So you're welcome.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night. And Maria, thank you for all of your comments and everything. You've been amazing too. We like you. Come back. All right, everybody. Goodbye.
All right.